Good afternoon and welcome. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Thank you, Representative Daigle. That will be the extent of the French I speak today. I am Representative Dan Sayre. I will be presiding over this public hearing of the Maine-Canadian Legislative Advisory Commission. The purpose of this hearing is to invite testimony from members of the public regarding the preliminary report produced by this commission to examine restoring passenger rail from Boston to Montreal. We will start with the people present here physically in the committee room before moving on to take testimony from those participating online. If you are in the room with us, please mute the audio and microphone on your electronic devices, including members sitting here at the Horseshoe, including myself. This will prevent audio disruptions both in the room and online. As a reminder, members in the room are asked to use the microphone at their seat when speaking. For those joining on Zoom, please keep your microphone muted until it is your turn to speak. At this point, I would like to ask the commission members, first those present in the room, then those online, to introduce themselves. And I will start on your left, my right, with Senator Garin.
Good afternoon. I am Senator Stacey Garin, representing Piscataquis and part of Penobscot counties.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Mark Blyer. I represent House District 138, which is Cornish, Leamington, a part of Hollis and Buxton.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Bennett. I have the honor of serving the people of 14 towns in Western Maine in the state Senate, parts of Androscoggin, Cumberland, and Oxford counties, and I am the co-chair of the commission.
I am Dan Sayre, co-chair of the commission. I am the representative for House District 135, which is the greater part of the great town of Kennebunk.
Jonathan Labonte. I'm a citizen representative. I live in Auburn, and I'm an appointee of the Senate President.
If I may call on Representative Daigle. Representative Daigle, you're on mute.
All right. Getting this to unmute was interesting. I'm Representative Lucian Daigle. I represent House District 1, and I'm sitting on the Canadian border right now.
Welcome. Ms. Lisa Scally.
Hello, my name is Lisa Scally. I am a citizen representative appointed by House Speaker Ryan Fecteau. I live in Portland.
And Senator Tipping.
Mike Tipping represents Senate District 8, which is 26 communities in Penobscot County.
Thank you all. The purpose of today's hearing is to solicit public input and feedback on the preliminary report produced by this commission. This is a little bit different than the hearings we normally hold on bills, so I would like to ask the commission members their preference in how we proceed. We have two options. First, would it be most helpful for us to divide the hearing the way we normally do with a bill and limit comments to those speaking for, against, and neither for, against the report? Or would it be most helpful to hold an open hearing and allow each member of the public to use their time to testify, to provide whatever mix of feedback they prefer? For simplicity, could I get a show of hands on option 1 in favor? A show of hands in favor of option 2. Okay, that's unanimous. Given that we're given the preference for option 2, we will hear testimony from persons present in the order in which they checked in. And then, with leave of the chair, committee members may ask questions of any person testifying today. Other questions are not permitted. Whether or not you testify, you may submit written testimony to the commission. Please be mindful that testimony is public and is available to all once it is presented. Persons testifying at the public hearing today are advised that the hearing is live streamed and may be seen and heard by persons watching online, and that a recording of the meeting will be archived. And I see that we have been joined by another commission member, Senator Lawrence. Would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm State Senator Mark Lawrence. I represent Southern York County, the towns of South Berwick, Elliott, Kittery, York, and Gunquit. And can I just ask of the chair, what is the report we're opening a hearing on?
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. The report before the commission is the preliminary report of the Maine-Canadian Legislative Advisory Commission to examine restoring passenger rail from Boston to Montreal. This is a report that is due to be submitted in its final form in December, and this meeting is a hearing on the contents of that draft report.
Okay, thank you.
So, given that we have decided to take testimony based on who is present, regardless of position, I will now begin with giving members of the public priority when we take testimony. If you are in the room and have prepared testimony, please provide copies of that testimony to our clerk, Anina, who is present to my left, your right. When you are called upon, I will ask you to state your name, your place of residence, and the organization you represent, if any. When you introduce yourself, please be sure to indicate how you would like members to refer to you and address you, including, if you wish, your title and your pronouns. I now open the public hearing on the preliminary report of the Maine-Canadian Legislative Advisory Commission to examine restoring passenger rail from Boston to Montreal. And I will now call on people in the room to offer testimony. Please remember to state your name, place of residence, the organization you represent, if any, and let us know how you would like members to address you. Thank you. And Anina, do we happen to know who wishes to go first?
Not have people sign up ahead of time.
Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will now take testimony from folks online. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak? Please raise your digital hand so that we can call on you. Hearing none, is there any member of the commission? We have one. Okay, thank you. Patty Barber is online. Ms. Barber, please turn on your microphone and your camera, and welcome your testimony.
Hello, thank you for this meeting. My name is Patty Barber. I live in Western Maine. I'm also the Maine Council representative of Rail Passengers Association, which is a national passenger rail advocacy group. I am extremely excited about this proposal, especially the potential for NEPRA to be involved in restoring passenger rail to Lewiston, Auburn. I think that's a really exciting part of this whole picture. I agree that this commission probably should be extended into the next session, 133rd. I think there's a lot of more detail that can be found, and I do think that having that extra time would allow all options to play out. I wholeheartedly would use the overnight motel model, especially because this can happen sooner with less upgrades of the tracks and allow for slower speeds. So we would be able to get to that whole process sooner. And I really feel that public-private partnership is actually the future of rail restoration. So I would love to see this as a good example of future rail restoration cooperation that can happen. I think getting that public entity of financial help could help with less government subsidies. So thank you, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Do members of the commission have any questions for Ms. Barber? Hearing none, I thank you for your testimony. Do we have any other participants present in the room or online wishing to testify? If so, please raise your digital hand online.
And Laurent, I'm promoting them panelists.
Okay. You said it was two individuals, Francois and Laurent?
Yeah, they're listed as Francois and Laurent.
Okay, Francois and Laurent, welcome. And please state your name and the organization you represent and share your testimony with us.
Yes. Hi, everybody. So I'm Francois Rebello. I'm CEO of Train Hotel. I just want to thank your group of the commission, especially Senator Bennett, to lead this effort, to think about this possibility, to study this possibility. And happy was also to see that someone from the NIPRA organization just said that they want to collaborate, because I think we need to integrate this service that could be financed by the private sector inside the organization of NIPRA. It has to be a puzzle, a part of this puzzle. And just to give you an example, if we have to run between Portland and Boston on the same track than the Downeaster, for sure it has to be part of the plan of NIPRA. It's what the people of CS6 told me, for example. So it's really, really important to work collaboratively with NIPRA. And on top of it, because it is the organization of owned by the Maine people, the people of Maine, it's totally logical that this organization help to make this project happen, even if it's privately financed. So we see it regularly that for this project. So I just want to highlight this. I'm very happy to see this potential collaboration. And personally, I've met a couple of times Patricia Quinn in the last few years, and I saw what she has been able to do as a leader of your organization. And I think you could be proud of this work, because it's a model for the rest of North America, how the state level and local people have been able to generate a new service between Maine and Boston. And I think we could learn from this success to build a Montreal Boston night train that would bring people in Maine. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Rebello. Are there any questions for Mr. Rebello for members of the commission? Do we have any other members of the public online or present in the room who wish to speak? Are there members of the commission who wish to offer comments or questions regarding the proposal in front of the commission?
Thank you, Rick Bennett here. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to our staff for putting together the preliminary report. I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Labonte, who provided some important pieces of the report. I do think that, given the rush timeframe of this, that the recommendation that we extend the work of the commission is paramount, because I think this report leads us in certain directions, but there's going to be a necessary deep dive. In particular, I think to tee this issue up in a way that the legislature would find useful, it would be really great to have a conversation with NAPRA and get their perspectives on how this might work. And I think we should be willful about inviting that conversation before the commission. But I think given the calendar, I don't see that happening before the report is due. So I would, but I think since the commission is continuing its work anyway, and we have the authority to work on this, uh, and continue working on this and other issues that we choose to, I think it would be good to just put it on the upcoming meeting, whenever that is, after this report is finalized, and ask NEPR to respond to the final report and actually to come and talk with us directly. But yeah, with that, I think it's good work for the time being, and I look forward to moving along to the legislature for their consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bennett. Other comments from commissioners? I will echo what you said about the necessity of extending the remit of the commission into the next session to continue examining this. I think there are issues of cost and feasibility yet to be explored, and that will happen subsequent to this proposal being submitted. With that, I will invite one last time if there are any participants or commissioners who wish to share testimony, questions, or comments. Mr. Labonte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will, I guess, echo the echo. This work, having been around it myself for a couple of decades now, monitoring as a community member in Lewiston, Auburn, that's had interest in this issue. The consistency of engagement, it was interesting to go through those past studies going back to late 90s tourism studies. And ultimately, well, it's been my fortune to be part of a legislative commission. The policy making that happens in the legislative branch around transportation policy, I think this really is a chance to reorganize and for the legislature to offer direction around the future of passenger rail, not necessarily in the 2-year increments, but long term, whether that's costs now, public-private partnerships. As has been mentioned, I think there's a great opportunity in really being able to level set based on the knowledge that's already been invested in through those various studies, so everyone can be, singing from the same song sheet. I do want to give a shout out to the staff for the commission that have come from both chambers, the work that they've done administratively to keep us meeting, as well as organizing this report. I do want to go on record thanking them for what they're doing. So,
and I will certainly echo you in your echo and also in your statement of thanks to the staff who have helped this work stay on course. One last call for comments, input from commissioners. Any member of the public present online whom we have not yet heard from? Hearing and seeing none, having received the testimony of those attending the meeting today, I will close the public hearing on the preliminary passenger rail report. Thank you all.
So I think the one last order of business for the commission is to set our meeting date before we adjourn. We have this report due on December 3rd. Is that right? Yeah. So I think we should, unless people want to adopt this here and now, I think we might want to take in the testimony and think about the report and come back one last time for a meeting to finalize the report and submit it to the legislature.
I agree. Senator Tipping, please.
So perhaps as part of that discussion or a separate scheduling one. Just note that Chair Sayer and I have been reaching out to some folks regarding the tariffs and tourism working group, and have a number of folks that would like to participate in a public hearing about current effects on the state. Wonder if that can be scheduled either as part of that meeting or as a separate meeting of this committee or of the working group.
I'm certainly open to either option. I'm just looking ahead that the time with the Thanksgiving break immediately preceding the week that includes December 3rd might be a little tight to do both those things. Yes.
Excuse me, just a question for Senator Tipping and yourself, Mr. Chair. Is there a document that would be something that would be this to ground the public hearing in regarding the tariffs and trade issue, or are you contemplating more of an open-ended format?
I'll invite Senator Tipping to go first on that.
The conversations we've had so far is the working group, which I think is mostly just Representative Sayer and I, and what we've heard from folks lead us to the idea that what might be most useful is just a chance to have a hearing that is more general and allow people to talk about the impact, I think especially of tariffs at the moment. And I believe that could be done without a document or without a formal, process set up beforehand. We may have some things that come out of that we wish to do as a committee or a commission.
Thank you, Mr. Tipping, and Senator Tipping, and I agree with you. And I think it might be the case that some form of a document might be a consequence of that hearing, but not preceded. So I see two options here. One is to try prior to December 3rd to hold a meeting that would contain both those things on the agenda. The second would be to hold a meeting to confirm the final form of this report and hold the tariff and trade and tourism discussion on another date. Is there preference among the participants of the commission for either of those options?
I think just I think we can get this report out. I think, focusing on this because of the time frame would be important. And the tariff meeting, maybe at a later date, would be my preference in order to get this out on time because we do have the holidays coming and things that are coming, 2 weeks to notify people. I don't know if that's exactly, but that would be my preference, is to get the report out first. And if we want to deal with tariffs at a later date would be my preference.
Senator Tipping.
I just say I think that would be appropriate as well. I think it would be useful, however, to schedule that additional meeting while we're all here together and have some idea of our calendars.
Agreed. So shall we make an effort to schedule 2 meetings between now and the end of the year? And I am looking ahead at my personal schedule involves being out of state for the entire week of the 17th through 21st. So of November. The leaving options, the early part of Thanksgiving week, the early part of the 1st or 2nd of December, or sometime next week. Senator Lawrence, I see your hand.
So when we get beyond this issue, I do have something else to raise in new business or either old business, whichever you consider.
We will turn to you for that as soon as we finish scheduling. Thank you for raising that. Do we have I know Thanksgiving week is often difficult. Is there a preference for perhaps the 1st or 2nd of December?
That would be my preference.
How about 2 p.m. December 2nd, which is the Tuesday, the day before the deadline?
I would not be available.
And Representative Daigle, I'm seeing you're shaking your head. Do you have a counter proposal that might work better for a plurality of us, a quorum of us?
The first would be a possibility.
Yeah. Would there, if we did this, I would prefer to do it virtually. And I would prefer to do it, which I think is easier because it's not a public hearing. And could we possibly do it in the morning? 10 a.m. Monday, December 1st. All in favor? Sold. Now for our second meeting. I could, I have a dentist appointment the afternoon of the 1st, and I'm trying to work around here. So I could do 2:30 or 3 on the 1st. Is there a preference, revised time on the 1st to 3 p.m.? Any objection to 3 p.m. on the 1st? All right. Thank you, Senator. Next would be to schedule our tariff, trade, and tourism impact session. Senator Tipping, do you happen to have a preference in mind for when that would be held?
Well, as much as I'd love to see you all twice in 1 week, seems like we should probably maybe push it back another, maybe perhaps Tuesday the 9th or Wednesday the 10th of December.
Those dates both work for me. Is there a preference between the 8th or 9th, morning or afternoon?
Both dates work for me.
I think you said the 9th and 10th.
I'm sorry. Yes. 9th and 10th.
They work for me.
All right, going one, let's just put one out there, 2 p.m. on Tuesday the 9th. Okay, 2 p.m. the 9th.
Yeah, if there would be no objection to a morning meeting either day, that might be easier.
Any objections to the morning? Lisa, Ms. Scally. The morning is difficult for you?
Just the morning of the 9th, the morning of the 10th is wide open.
Perhaps 10 a.m. on the 10th. That work for everyone.
Ten a.m. on the 10th, 12:10 at 10 a.m. All in favor? All right. Now, Senator Lawrence, can we return to you?
Sure, I'd be happy to chat for a brief minute. Since the last meeting, the Canadian Consulate General in Boston reached out to me and a couple of legislators, as well as the New England, as well as the New York Consulate reached out to some legislators in New York and Pennsylvania. They invited us to go to Ontario and meet with members of the legislature there and get briefings from them regarding relationships between the provinces and the state of Maine. So I thought it might be good for some time, either today or at another time, for me to kind of explain to you what went on and what my impressions were.
I would be happy to welcome those now if you are
Yep.
prepared. Thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to, and I presented it at the EUT committee because a lot of what we were talked about was regarding energy, but the Canada maintains 11 consulates around the United States. The one in Boston has responsibility for the New England states. The one in New York, it's kind of Pennsylvania, Delaware, that New Jersey, that area. So my reading of what was going on, and things are transpiring so quickly in the relations between the U.S. and Canada, that the provinces, which tend to be much more independent than states in the United States, were becoming increasingly worried about the relationships and their impact on trade. So they began pushing the federal government, which is what the consulates represent, to try to help them address this. So the federal government agreed to set up a meeting with some legislators from around the Northeast with the province of Ontario. If you kind of know the province of Ontario, it's the largest province. It's not the one we have the most trade with, but there's a lot of interaction. And when the relationship began to deteriorate on the national level, Ontario began to take certain actions against the United States, against imports from the United States, and talk about their pensions, investments, and things like that. So the federal government became very concerned about the individual provinces kind of going off on their own in relationships. So they're kind of helping to oversee this process, and they call it less of a federal relationship and more of a relationship between individual provinces and the states. So this was one of the first visits they arranged. It took place in Toronto. We met with members of the Assembly in Toronto. We also met with the American consulate up in Ontario to talk about our concerns and the impact on what breakdown in relationships means for states like Maine. We got a briefing on different things such as rare earth minerals, because Canada produces 80% of the rare earth minerals, mines 80% of the rare earth minerals used in the United States, and things like that. So my kind of read on this is the relationship that Canada has had between the United States for the last 40 or 50 years is changing, and they see a new dynamic developing. And the provinces want to develop individual relationships with the various states in the United States so that relationships do not break down and do not impact trade. We spent about 3 days there from Maine. There was Melanie Sachs-Glenn, who co-chairs the EUT committee with me, and another representative. And then there were people from New Hampshire, a Republican senator from New Hampshire, one from New York, someone from Pennsylvania, and just to talk about things that were going on. We toured their nuclear power facility, which Ontario is trying to heavily sell to states within the United States, getting them to buy their products. We also toured their rare earth mineral sites and processing sites and things like that. But more, it was wanting to develop conversations between individual provinces and states. And that's why I kind of wanted to bring it to this commission. And Lisa Carrier, who came with us from the consulate in Boston, is very interested in opening up conversations between the various Canadian provinces that we border on and the state of Maine. particularly New Brunswick, she mentioned, the maritime provinces. I know in the past, we've had the Premier of Quebec over to speak to the Maine legislature, and she thought it would be good to develop a closer relationship with the maritime provinces too as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw this out for everybody just to be aware of this and kind of a discussion and think what role we want this commission to play in helping to facilitate those things.
Thank you, Senator. And I recall, or I'll recall for all of us, that the third priority area that we have is to do exactly this, to establish relationships between this group and the elected leaders of our neighboring and nearby provinces. Any comments, reactions, responses to the comments from the senator?
Thank you. Senator Lawrence, I had a question. Who,
Yes.
what was the organization you went with recently that you've just been talking about?
It was the consulate in Boston, the Canadian government. The Canadian government was asked by the province on Ontario to invite a group of legislators from the Northeast to Ontario to begin preliminarily developing more personal relationships between legislators in Ontario and legislators in the Northeast. And the reason we had no control over who they chose, who they asked, I'm not even sure who they asked. Only a small number of legislators went. But in the past, Stacey, we've always relied upon the federal government to be the framework for our relationship with Canada. Canada, my impression is Canada seems that very much breaking down now. And the provinces are ambitious to develop kind of personal relationships between the provinces and the state and various states. So this was the Canadian government trying to keep the provinces, in my opinion, under the umbrella of the federal government and facilitating these meetings. And my sense is they're going to have others. I know people on this commission might be interested, so I can certainly suggest some names to people on future individuals to be invited to meetings. They also expressed an interest in coming to Maine too as well to meet with people. So it was very kind of, in law we call it sua sponte, just very spontaneous, that they were feeling pressure from the Ontario government to Ontario was starting to go off on its own. So if you recall right, and this is my impression, I'm not any expert in international relations. I think the relationship between Justin Trudeau and President Trump broke down significantly. And it was largely based upon personally how Justin Trudeau treated the president. When the new premier came in, he's gone out of his way to establish a much better relationship with the White House. And I think he's done that. But the provinces began to get very, kind of acting on their own. And if you recall, the premier of Ontario talked about boycotting American liquor, talked about putting all kinds of trade restrictions, and the federal government was very afraid that all the provinces would begin to do that. So this is part of trying to, I think, help them develop individual relationships with various states. Now, the province of Ontario has a department that just deals with relationships with states in America. We don't have any such department in the state of Maine. We used to have, Senator Bennett will probably remember it, an office of our Maine-Canadian relationships in the State House, but that was done away with. So we had some talk about, perhaps looking at developing a protocol department within Maine state government that's not partisan, that just works on maintaining relationships, because we used to rely on the federal government for these relationships. and how to deal with people who came here from other provinces. And the impression I got is in the future, this is going to take place more between the individual provinces and the states than it does facilitated by the two federal governments. Does that help, Stacy?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. Senator Bennett.
Thank you. And Senator Lawrence, thank you very much for that information and eloquently put and perspective. You know, I see a little bit of confluence here between various purposes of this organization. We've been charged, to look at passenger rail service. Senator Lawrence raises some issues relating to rare earths and energy. We're going to be having a public hearing on trade and tariffs and, what pressure points might be there. I think I think in today's world, just getting people together to learn about each other personally isn't really the point. I think we should be purposeful, and I see this third area of our remit, which is to help establish a new exchange program, as fitting really well into that. And I think, it might be a good thing for us all to think about when we hear public testimony on the trade and tariff issue. What issues in particular, is it agriculture? Is it softwoods? Is it energy? Whatever it might be that we could learn about might be the basis, as it seems like this most recent visit was built around some actual topic areas of importance substantively, that not only builds the relationships, but actually gets some substantive ideas flowing about, what the priorities might be to focus on. I think that might be really helpful. And so I want to express my gratitude for the information there. And it sounds like there's a willingness and an eagerness actually across the border to engage in the conversation on that basis. And so I think it would be great for this organization, this commission, to lean into that opportunity and to take the lead, at least with respect to the state of Maine, at furthering that communication and do it around substantive issues that we identify and our cross-border allies identify as being substantively important for particularly trade and trade with Maine and our neighbors.
Senator Guerin.
I would just add to that, another topic that I think is very important is tourism. Yeah. Certainly Bar Harbor felt the pinch this summer from the Canadians, and other areas in my district did as well.
I agree with all of that, and thank you, Senator Lawrence, for sharing that experience and recommendation. And if I may, I'm going to make a suggestion building on what Senator Bennett just said, which is to ask of the commission. I am forgetting, frankly, who among us has volunteered to be on that third working group about building up the bilateral relationships. But could we ask that group to be prepared by the meeting on the 10th with just some basics about the who and what of formulating those relationships, so that on the 10th, when we are going through the public hearing on the trade and tourism piece, and we're already talking about the transportation piece, and they're not only just three T's, I think they are three very important aspects of our relationship across the border, that we could also have some members of the commission sharing, preparing this group for how we would move forward on reestablishing those bilateral relationships.
I have a couple of closing thoughts and closing suggestions, if you guys are interested in hearing them.
Yes, please go ahead, Senator.
So I think, and this is going to be my last term in the legislature, so I'm trying to get as much of this out and to help future legislatures in setting these things up. I think it might be good to have the people from the Boston consulate, Canadian consulate, come up to one of our meetings and just speak to us, talk to us about what they do, what they're trying to facilitate. I understand completely about what Senator Bennett is saying, and I think it's important to focus on the issues, but it's also important to focus on the human relationships and the interactions between people. I think what I recognize in the Ontario government, the Quebec government, the federal government in Canada, they're much more advanced than us on protocol and how to interact with people from the people they do interrelationships with. So they have complete protocol department that remembers every time Rick Bennett's been to Canada to visit them, what gifts they gave him, you know, those types of things. They maintain a history that goes from administration to administration, remembering who the players are and who people are. It's all done in a very nonpartisan fashion, so that when, you know, if I called the consulate in Boston, they would immediately know who I was and what relationships there are. We have no capacity to do that in Maine at this point, no memory beyond individual legislators. And I think we got to think about developing that down the road. So I think it'd be good to have somebody like Lisa Carrier come up, who works for the consulate in Boston, and just meet us. One of the interesting things they discussed, and one of the people they wanted us to meet, is what's called the Maple 8. They are the 8 pension funds in Ontario, and together they invest, I forget what it is, it's like $8 billion in pension investments for the teachers' pension, et cetera. And 55% of that is invested in the United States. And if you recall right, the Premier of Ontario said, well, we're going to pull all our investments out of the United States after the 51st state comment. And obviously they couldn't do that. The pension fund said there's no other place for us to put that money. But we need to better understand the interrelationships, the impacts between individual provinces and individual states. And down the road, I think it would be good to have maybe legislators from New Brunswick visit the state of Maine next session to just begin to develop those personal relationships.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. So I believe what I was, Ms. Scally.
Yes, thank you. Senator Lawrence, I just want to thank you for all that information. I found it extremely interesting. And I have signed up to be on the working group to improve the legislative relationship. So I'm very interested in pursuing this avenue of opportunity. I was curious, at the end of the meeting in Ontario, were there any next steps that were discussed, or was it kind of a one and done type deal?
So I'm no expert in foreign relations. So there was a formal meeting, and there really were no next steps discussed about that. But there was a lot of informal conversations that went on, particularly with the consulate. See, they have the Ontario consulate that represents Ontario, and then they have the federal consulate. So a lot of my discussions were with Lisa Carrier and other people we've met on Franco-American Day about what next steps might be. I think Speaker Fecteau has some interest in inviting the Premier of New Brunswick to speak to the legislature. And we had kind of an informal conversation about that. I reached out to Maddie and talked with her, or started to talk with her a little bit about that. But it was more of looking for ways to increase the interaction between the individual provinces and the states, because they did not feel that in this new dynamic, the federal governments are going to provide us the context, the relationships that will best suit individual states and individual provinces. So I think they're very much exploring at this time, and it's kind of a brave new world.
Well, if I could just tack on one more thing, perhaps it would be interesting for them to come and talk to us after we've had the hearing And we've been able to compile some of that information in terms of data points and just general impressions and share that with them.
Yep. That would be good. Usually these are people who come up every Franco-American Day, every 2 years, and we don't place them, and that's much more of a social thing. But these relationships are going to become much, much more important, my sense is, over the next decade.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Sakali, and thank you, Senator Lawrence. Senator Garin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if the task that Senator Bennett had put before my small group, would that be appropriate to have Lisa Courier come? And that would be the connection, maybe start there, have her come to our December meeting if she's available.
I am nodding in agreement. I see others.
Yes, okay. So I'll pursue that then.
Thank you, Senator. The December 10th meeting, I take it. Is that to be precise? Because we did set one on December 1st. Yes, yes. Are there other comments or other business of commissioners to be brought forward at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion. Oh, comments from Senator Bennett.
I move we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn that's been seconded. All in favor?